Hi, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining us for our very first Next Fest live industry Q&A panel. It's part of our RMIT Open Day activity. It's a number of events that we've got planned for the next few weeks. And I'm delighted today to welcome a number of our partners. But before I begin, my name is Chaminda Ranasinghe. I'm the Chief Experience Officer at RMIT University. And as I said, I'm really excited to be hosting this panel discussion with a number of our key industry partners, and we're going to be discussing the future of work in the context of what careers are going to be available for our students and all of us really as the world changes around us so quickly. At RMIT, we really pride ourselves on preparing our students not just for work, but for life as well. And that's something that is, as I said, changing rapidly. And it's quite exciting. The future, I think, is really bright despite some of the challenges that we're facing into right now. And who better than our industry panel experts to talk about the way that they're seeing their industries change in the context of the future of work. And one of the ways that we make sure we prepare our students is by partnering with organizations such as the group that we've got here today. Our students work on projects with industry partners. We have a number of internships, and we undertake a lot of activities, research or project-wise with industry partners. These experiences provide invaluable experience and opportunities for our students as they not just expand their own knowledge, but they learn how to apply the skills that they learn at university in the professional environment, and they put what they learn into practice, which is really important. And now, before I begin, I'd like to acknowledge the people of the Woiwurrung and Bunurong language groups of the Eastern Kulin Nations, whose unceded lands we conduct the business of our university. RMIT respectfully acknowledges their elders past, present and emerging. And of course, as we're all, or most of us are working from home and studying at home, I'd also like to pay my respects to the wider unceded lands of this nation. So some housekeeping before we really get into the panel and I introduce all our guests. I want to remind our listeners that we'll have approximately 15 or 20 minutes at the end of the discussion where you can ask questions from the audience, and we'd love to hear from you. And really the idea is that we engage with as many participants as we can. There's a Q&A tool on the right-hand part of the screen, and at any point you can post some questions, and we'll do our best to answer as many as we can. Now, conscious that we want to record this so that we can share it with as many of our audiences as we can. As I mentioned, Next Fest is going to go on for the next month or two, with culminating on our open day, our virtual open day on the 29th of August, where we'll again this will be available for that period of time. And now let's get to our panel. I'm absolutely delighted to welcome a number of our special guests. And first up, I'd like to introduce Shan Kien. And Shan is from MYOB and is the program advisor for the Protégé program. So welcome, Shan. I'm delighted to have you from MYOB, and we're doing some exciting things with you. Also joining us today is Sam Hunt. Sam is the Vice President of Sales for APAC at GitHub. Great to have you on board, Sam. And next up, we have the Regional Human Resources Lead at TikTok, Katie Dunn. And Katie, I'm delighted to connect with you again, and we're looking forward to doing a lot more with TikTok. It's such an exciting brand. And last, and of course, not the least, I have Dr. John Rubio Lotus. John is the Head of Innovation, Automation and Analytics at NAB, or National Australia Bank, and having worked in the banking sector myself, I'm really looking forward to discussing the future of banking and the financial sector with John. So welcome to all of the panelists. I'm looking forward to the discussion. So let's start with some questions. And of course, with hopefully many of our students thinking about their futures as we go into the latter parts of year 12 now, and the exam, starts exams and the moments of truth start to get close. They'll be thinking about not just university, but what do they want to do with their future as they come through. So I'd like to understand firstly about your role within your organizations, but importantly, what made you start and kickstart your career in the industry that you're in. So why don't I start with John?
Thanks, Chaminda. So, okay, so my role, I'm, as you said, I'm head of innovation, automation, analytics. So what does that mean? That can mean lots of things. Essentially, my role in the organisation is to help other teams within the bank to get more efficient. So maybe simplification, and of course we also do some analytics. Like, so for example, some of the work that we're doing right now is like looking at our customer complaints, and do our customer complaints, is there a theme coming out of that? Is there something that might indicate an issue or a systemic problem? And that's a little bit of hardcore analytics. But essentially what my team does and what I do is to try and enable other teams in a bank by using data, some workflow tools and analytics.
Thanks, John. Let me go to Katie.
Hi, everyone. It's great to be here and lovely to be with you all. I obviously work for TikTok. I had the terrible job of opening the first TikTok offices in Australia. And obviously there was great growth happening in a lot of the other markets overseas, and we decided we needed a local presence. So that's what I've been doing for the last year and a half. My career path has been a little bit different. I haven't always been in the tech space. I've always been in HR, but I've worked through a variety of different companies. So prior to being at TikTok, I actually worked for a company called Merlin Entertainment. So I was looking after sharks and kangaroos and a whole bunch of random strange animals. And then somehow I took the pivot into tech, and it wasn't where I'd always planned to be, but I can't imagine myself being anywhere else now. I think I love tech because it's just so fast paced. It's so innovative. Obviously it's in some ways super cool, and I get to work with a variety of really fun creators and amazing team members who are really passionate about what they do. And I think, aside from the tech piece, I've always worked for brands that I can be really passionate about. So things that have really excited me, and that's led me to where I've been today.
Thanks, Katie. So going from sharks to tech, probably not that much of a jump in some ways. Thank you. I might go to Sam next.
Hi, everybody. I'm the one that you can't see. So my story is similar to Katie's. I didn't set out on a path that was chasing a tech career, but I kind of fell into it. I actually went through a series of things like jackarooing, and I competed as a skateboarder and then worked in restaurants. And I actually got exposed to technology in restaurants and point of sale systems way back in the day, and really, really loved the ability that technology had to apply efficiencies to what I was doing in restaurants. And I kind of just followed a path which has led me to here. So from a day-to-day basis at GitHub now, I'm basically here to engage with customers, developers, communities, other technology vendors, and just work on better outcomes and innovation across both APAC and the globe. And I really love that. I love the diversity in what we can do in technology. It's relevant to everything on the planet, which is really cool. One of the coolest things I like about it. So funny story from the faceless man, but that's kind of my path.
Thanks, Sam. I think we've all gotten used to dealing with these little speed bumps we get when we do online sessions, so that's completely understandable. I might now go to Sian, please.
Hi, everyone. It's so wonderful to be here. I'm quite honoured to be in the midst of so many wonderful people here. But to what Sam had said is that technology centres everything that we touch. And I've been working in the digital space for almost, 15 years now, which is crazy. But like everybody else here, I also fell into technology. So I started my career in medical recruitment, but then fell into coaching emerging talent. And then worked for places worked for ANZ as well, and NAB, and placing all these technical talent across the big four banks and big enterprises. But I also worked for digital companies like realestate.com.au, and now working for MYOB. And my role as a program advisor is I own two programs. I own the Future Makers Academy, which is our graduate program and enabling our software engineers. And then our second coaching program, which is our Develop Her program, which enables more women to get into software engineering, and that's the affiliation between ourselves and RMIT. So we use RMIT to really help more women get into technology, and that's my role. So yeah.
Thank you, Shan. That's really exciting to hear this. It's what's interesting is with all of you, you seem to have taken a different path, a varied path to get to where you are. And it's certainly the same story that I have in my own career and so many people that I speak to. So I'm keen to hear about your journeys. But before I get into that part of the conversation, I'm really keen to hear about your industry and where you see your industry going in the context of the future of work and the careers that are going to come through your industry's growth. So it's really about, I'd love to have a crystal ball. We don't have one, but I'd love to hear your thoughts about where you think the careers in your industry are going to head to. Katie, why don't I start with you?
Yeah, it's interesting because working for TikTok, obviously we have kind of two elements, I would say, that capture where people come into the business. And it's kind of, you've got the engineering side of things, which is very focused on obviously building the amazing products we have. And then we've got a lot of work in the partnership space. So be that, working with amazing industry partners like RMIT or working with our creator communities. And in saying that, I guess, the way that work is moving for us is really interesting because we are actually looking at people that have got, not just the right CV and not just the right education, but they're pairing that with what they do in their everyday lives. So that line is kind of blurring between, I guess, the personal and the social life for our industry anyway, and actually your professional life. So, we kind of look for people these days that can understand the product, have the technical skill set, have, studied and obviously worked in that space, but at the same time may have a side career as a content creator, or maybe, understanding the platform from a total user perspective. And because of that, it really opens the gates to kind of, I guess, develop a whole new realm of people that aren't just looking at their professional lives, but yeah, definitely taking what they do in their personal and making it a career, which is really nice in terms of being able to be passionate about what you do.
John, sorry, I'll come to you next. Mute is still playing havoc with me as well.
No problem, Jaminda. Yeah, so banking, can I say, and you would know this, Jaminda, but banking has always been an industry that is really heavily employed, people in technology and the sciences, and, you want to make sure that, banks are, safe, or, the, lending money is really about risk, and so the idea of how to manage risk has always been part of banking. But saying that, I would say, and I've been in banking for 20 odd years. The last 5 years have been amazing, and there's been an explosion in how we, really are now starting to think about customer needs and what our customers want, and what we can do to simplify our customers' lives. And that's led to an explosion internally in the bank in terms of a whole lot of people like me and others who really aren't. I'm actually not involved in the traditional part of banking. I used to be. I'm more involved now in how we make what the bank does simpler for customers, easier for customers, more attractive for customers. And that's led to a huge explosion. And I really see that continuing. I mean, there's so many growth opportunities within banking today for the right people. And what I mean by the right people, yes, you need some qualification there, but it's really about people who are passionate, people who are really excited about, making a difference. There's so much opportunity there.
Thanks, John. It's great to hear that the future of not just your sector, but definitely banking, that it's going to be far more about the customer and understanding the needs of the customer. And I think, Katie, great to hear that the future of what you're seeing in your industry is about how people can connect their personal passions and goals with what they do for a living. That's great to hear. Sam, why don't I come to you next? I think Sam might be struggling technically. Shan, shall I come to you next, and we'll hopefully get Sam?
Yeah, sure. Sure. So if I can speak about technology for a moment, in that, the evolution of technology will always be a continual part of, our environment. And we've seen in COVID that disruption, it hasn't really disrupted technology at all. So that's the one thing. But the other part within MYB, we've seen such a rise in entrepreneurs, and the biggest, I guess, purpose that we have at MYB is to help businesses in Australia and New Zealand start, survive and succeed. And in the last 2 years with small businesses, they've now understood that going online and being on the cloud and making their, how would you say, systems work from that angle is rising even more and more. So the evolution of technology will never stop. It is infinite, and there's always going to be a continual way of innovation, satisfying customers, and making it really simple for the future. So I would say that that is the industry and where the growth is happening. And I think growth in technology will be forever non-stopping, if that even is a word. So yeah.
Shan, that's amazing to hear. You're so right. The context of the world that we're in now it's changing so rapidly. So the point you're making about entrepreneurial, so the spirit that comes with innovation and people want to start businesses and do new things and connecting that with technology. So it's almost sort of starting a business and making sure that you're technologically focused. So having that context and background is so important. So I guess that leads me to almost a good segue to talk about the future, because let's be fair, the future is coming at us faster than ever. If there's one thing that we've learned through the last 18 months of the interesting world that we're in, given the circumstances, is that the trends that we have been expecting are already here. They've just come at us far quicker. So in that context, how do you see those trends, the future that we've talked about? How do you see that changing employability and how you bring in your future employees, how you attract our graduates and your future employees? I'll go to, I started with Kate. Let me go back to you, Shan, because I don't think we've got Sam, unfortunately.
Can you hear me?
We can, Sam. So
yeah.
Why don't you go next, mate?
I apologise. Teams is really, really lagging. So I hit unmute and it didn't come on. So sorry, I was just trying to fix that and wasn't focusing on the question. I was still thinking about what I was going to say about the last one.
That's fine. Do you want me to give you the question again? I might just say what we were talking about is the future trends that we've been expecting. Sam, they're already here. So in that context, what do you see? How do you see that impacting how you employ graduates, future employees, as you face into all the change that we're seeing now?
Yeah, I think that my biggest comment is that the personal skills become so much more apparent in this day and age, right? Because you actually want the applicability to an individual versus only the education side of things, because we really don't know what we're building anymore. Like, it's changing so fast. We disrupt and move forward, and the tools that we use change on a almost daily, weekly, monthly basis, which makes it really hard. So what you're looking for is the person that can actually apply some creation and innovation. And I think this is a great time to be in technology, particularly in Australia, because we now have a global stage, right? And we've traditionally shipped people offshore to companies that were doing this very well overseas. That curve's changed a lot now, and we have the opportunity to build a great technology industry here. And we are innovators by nature. We're a long way from the rest of the world. So we come up with great ideas out of necessity. It's now time to embrace that and harness it and really focus on what we can deliver back out to the world.
I love hearing that, Sam. It's great to hear that you feel Australians are leading the way in that space. I totally agree with you that the soft skills are so important. Now, before I came to you, I had started talking to Shan, so I might come back to you, Shan.
Yeah, I would really echo what Sam had said. I mean, it is about the soft skills and your ability to relate. But I think if we talk around the customers, so in order for us to build really amazing products, we also have to reflect our workforce, to reflect our customer base. So which means that, we do have to recruit for diversity, people who represent different cultures, different race, gender, your preference of sexuality, whatever it is. More employers are jumping on that bandwagon because the more better you have a workforce reflecting your customers, the better and competitive and creative your products will be. So I think that's another strategy that employers will be banking on. And not only that, we know that technology enables employers to really connect with all different types of people across the world. So you're finding companies that may not hire people from, different states of Australia, for example, is now actually leaking into other states now. So there's, I guess, a little bit more competition, but a lot of variety that, your future, students will be exposed to. So I'll say in that. But the other part to that is, if we talk about future work and the technology side, there's also this huge kind of topic about ethics as well. So as we grow from a technological, from a data perspective, there's a lot of talk about the ethical side of data and how do we hold that, and being able to have future employees that can think around that as well, behind the cultural workforce that you possess in a company is where a company will go far, in regards to every climate that that a company will face. So that's my take.
I mean, some incredibly exciting. I can only echo what you say. We need to have students and future graduates not just have the skills technical skills that they apply, but those values, the ethics, be purposeful and purpose-led. In that's how the world expects our employees to behave these days. And to be fair, all organisations need to be that way. So thank you, great insights. And I also have read in the past and experienced not just the crisis that we're in now, but previous trouble periods like the GFC, that the companies that had the most diverse workforces were the ones who came out of those troubled periods the best. So really interesting that we can learn from the past and apply it to the future that's coming at us pretty quickly. But thank you. Katie, over to you.
Yeah, look, great points from Sam and Chan both, because I think, I would see elements of both of that in everything we're doing at the moment with employability. I think when Sam mentioned about, we have a space on the global stage from a tech perspective, that's really true. And it does come down to, those regional barriers that we had, or regional lines of organisations are blurred. So, for example, at the moment, I'm actually working obviously from Sydney and doing a lot with the Sydney team, but I'm supporting a lot of our functions globally. So I'm helping open some new offices in Montreal. I'm also supporting a few other Canada projects, working on some stuff that's happening in Southeast Asia. And, for me, that's just broadening my experience. But again, to Chan's point, really broadening the diversity of opinion and thought that goes into a lot of these projects. So you kind of see both of those things coming together to create, more diversity and more accessibility in different regions and working on different projects. That's kind of, I think for people potentially looking to join the workforce or, change where they are in their careers, it's opening a lot more doors than it used to. And, I guess for me, it's a real silver lining of COVID. It's just that this virtual world has become a lot bigger all of a sudden with a lot more opportunity for us all.
That's a great point, and that's the beauty of it, isn't it? We are the globe, the workforce around the world is now at our fingertips, and students can connect with, not just future employers, but industry partners all around the world. That's a great point. Thank you. John, let me come to you to finish this point.
Yeah, look, I'm not sure I have too much more to add, because I think the other speakers have been spot on. What I will say is, if I think of banking and the future there, banking is extremely competitive. And through that competition, we are really geared to innovate. So it's really through innovation that we seek to meet that competition and meet our customers' needs. And so how do you innovate? And what we've learned through innovation is I'm kind of going to echo some of what my other panel members have said, which is you can't innovate by all being the same and thinking in the same way and doing the same thing. So yes, you really need to be good at what you do and really passionate about what you do. But also you need to have people from very diverse backgrounds, very diverse experiences. And we've really learned that. So our teams, we often have teams in NAB that aren't all from the same area. Like we all are in teams, but we run projects with virtual teams, and we want people who represent the front line. We want people who represent risk. We want people who represent the customer. And often we have a customer on the board that we might call, like Lisa, and Lisa's 20 years old, and at university, what are the things she will need, and that helps us with that innovation. So it's about, to me, passion and bringing people together from very different experiences and backgrounds.
That's great, John. It's, to your point, it's so important that while students are at uni, they mimic those experiences. They work in collaborative environments. They're partnering and working in these virtual worlds. They're connecting with diverse groups, and that's absolutely what we do with people like yourselves. We partner with you. So in that context, let me stay with you, John, and go to the next question. I'm sure that our audience would like to hear about some of the partnerships and how you connect with RMIT. So, talk about the affiliation you have with RMIT. I'm sure we'd like to delve into that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, RMIT is one of the great universities, not only in Victoria but also in Australia, that connects to industries and employers. And I connect to RMIT on a personal and a professional level by I'm a member of RMIT's industry advisory panel. So in their mathematical sciences and in their sciences generally, like RMIT, which is really innovative in itself, has industry participants, and I'm one of those participants. And that's a great thing. Can I say the reason it's a great thing is because I get to see what RMIT are doing in their space and how they're being innovative in their space, because education and knowledge is changing all the time. But RMIT then get to hear from me as being in the industry, and RMIT present to us, this is what we're thinking. This is what we're thinking of doing. What do you think? And they ask us a lot of questions. What does industry need? What does industry need in the next 3 to 5 years? So I'm on their industry advisory committee, and there's a lot of discussion about students and industry needs in that committee.
Thanks, John. And those advisory committees are so important because we want to make sure that what we teach and how we teach it is relevant to industry, because at the end of the day, we need our graduates to be industry ready. So thank you. Sam, let me come to you next.
Sure. Yeah, I think so. From a GitHub perspective, RMIT have been a recent but great supporter of GitHub's education program. So GitHub is the home of developers worldwide. There's 65 million developers collaborating on GitHub on a daily basis and working largely on open source projects that have made it easier for everybody to innovate at speed, right? We provide a program that is a no-cost program for universities to be involved in to allow access to that as part of the learnings and curriculum. And it's a really important relationship to ensure that students coming through actually learn that there is this global community of collaboration to help them and be involved in. And I think it's not just about consuming, it's about contributing back as well. And that's your starting part to learning that. So it's a really, really important foundation for GitHub success, and also for any student success that's looking to get into a form of innovation. Because the reality is, we probably consume up to 80% of our code when we're creating something out of the open source community. It's about 20% maybe we're building something special. But the reality is, the reason why we've been able to innovate at the speed we have is because of that collaboration. So including that as part of a student's journey as early as possible is really, really important. So it's been really great to be working with RMIT and the team there and our education team, and making that available to the students coming on with technology aspirations or anything else for that matter.
Thanks, Sam. It's just fantastic to hear it, because your organisation in many ways is the cutting edge of what the future will be with the gig economy and everything else that's coming our way. So having our students being able to not just connect with those audiences and your wide community, it's also great to then have you come back and provide those insights back to our academics and so forth. So that's fantastic to hear. Katie, I'll come to you next.
Sure. So I think at this stage, TikTok's obviously a platform for, a lot of fun content, but it's also a platform that, really reaches a lot of generations in terms of messaging, particular of younger generations that may be in school and thinking about what to do next. So we partner with RMIT in a lot of different ways, but predominantly to kind of send out some messaging about what's happening at RMIT and how we can work together in future. So I know that we have a lot of open day things that are put on our platform, and a lot of that content is shared there for people to be able to access and understand more. As we get more established in Australia as well, I think we are looking to kind of set up more formal partnerships around internships and graduate programs. So that's stuff that will be happening in the next, hopefully, the next year as we grow. But that kind of would be, RMIT definitely is a provider that we'd be looking to work with in that space to provide training and ongoing graduate opportunities for graduates.
Thanks, Katie. And maybe for the simple scenario that Shan, you already mentioned about attracting great diverse talent, I'd love to hear about how MYOB connects with RMIT.
Yeah, I heard about interns and graduates like, woohoo, love it. But there's actually two affiliations. So MYB is a product, and it's and we offer this product to accounting students just so that they can kind of test and play around with that product, because every organisation has some sort of tool that manages your finances. But on the other side, our Develop Her program. So we have partnered with RMIT to enable more women into technology. So, according to the Australian Bureau of Statistics, currently there's only about 12% of women, 12 to 14% of women that are in software engineering. So we partner with RMIT to be able to supply us with the training and the core work. And the reason why we chose RMIT was a number of factors. The ability to really understand what industry-led training actually looks like, to make our developers job ready. Our Develop Her program is a program where we not only fund them from a permanent job perspective, but also pay for their learning while they're learning at RMIT, but the support that RMIT actually offers and the diversity of employability in regards to awards. I know that you all won kind of a diversity equity award. Those were some of the values that we really aligned with, and that's why we have chosen RMIT and RMIT Switch for that reason as well. So we're really excited, and I've already can see the women just growing and prospering, and the types of women that come into this are women who have never really thought about software development, but in their lifetime now has actually had the opportunity to switch. So so far having an amazing experience. So yeah, that's the affiliation. I'm really proud so far with what we've been able to do with RMIT. Oh, Shaminda, you're on mute.
After we still do. I'm just so delighted to hear you speak about the Women in STEM program and STEM for all. That's what really RMIT, not just RMIT to be fair, most of our tech community stand for. We want to make sure that we encourage as much of our future generations to be very comfortable with technology, and particularly women in STEM is so important. And I know that we do a lot with MYOB, and to be fair, all of our industry partners, but it's great that you bring that up. So I mean, STEM for all really is one of our cornerstones around our future of not just work, making sure our graduates are job ready. Let's before we get to the audience questions, one maybe something fairly simple. If you could go back and talk to your younger self when you were looking at your career and thinking about advice to future students, what would you say? What would you give an earlier, graduate self when you're coming out of uni? What would you tell yourself? And in the context of giving that same advice to someone now, let me start with you, Shan.
Yeah, when I was young, I had a very different vision of what success looked like to me. And you probably have all heard from our panelists members here that, your career can pivot at any point in time. But technology, I will say, is probably will touch you at every corners of whatever role that you get into. We've known that TikTok has really connected us through COVID. I mean, I've spent a lot of time in TikTok, by the way. Kate, just to let you know, the banks, ANZ as well. Like there's online there, and then GitHub. All of our employers are in GitHub. If you don't have a GitHub account, are you a software developer? Kidding, no. But the one thing that I would probably tell myself is that, and this is going to sound really cliche, but thinking that you have to be a cookie cutter of someone else to be successful is probably not the way to go. If you are really confident in who you are, what your background is, what the diversity of thought that you actually bring, and just be firm with that, and then apply that to what your potential next gig could be, then you are going to find, the alignment between what you love and your passions and the career that you're about to get into. So I pretended to be someone else entering to the career, but when I kind of let that go and realize, hold on for a second, my background and my experiences actually do matter in the way that I create things, then you are going to be quite successful. So let go of the idea of what you think success is, because success will come in experience, in time, in failures. It will all formulate, and then it will come to a beautiful setting where you start to touch upon where your, career grows, if that kind of makes sense. So that would probably be the advice that I would give myself. So yeah.
What lovely advice, Shan. I so agree with you. Find your own path. There's no single path that everyone has to follow. That's such lovely advice. Sam, what would you tell your younger self?
Probably go to university. No, just kidding. I think from my perspective, I actually had this conversation with my 15-year-old daughter the other day, and what I talked about was you don't need to know what you want to do. You need to learn skills, and you need to be passionate, and because you may well be the person that creates new roles. Roles are not defined anymore. They really aren't, and that's because of that attribution to the passion and the soft skills as much as what you learn. So I think I would be really open, be creative, and think about disruption. Things are going to make life better, because if it's going to make something better for you, it's probably going to make something better for lots of other people, and it's a really important contribution to the world. So that would be the best advice. I think that the capture of knowledge is really important, but then learning how to apply that knowledge to what's important to you and what's important to your passion is equally or possibly more important to defining where your career will go. And, don't chase the money, chase the outcomes.
Brilliant, Sam. I mean, look, like as you said, be passionate, be creative, brave, and do something that you believe in. What wonderful advice. Katie, what would you say, as I said, to yourself, but to our audience who are hopefully thinking about their career in the future?
Sure. It's very eloquent answers before me, and I would agree again to all of them. But I guess, a lot of people, when they're deciding where to go in terms of study and then their career, you think of it, it's a bit scary, the concept, thinking that it's, could potentially be 20 years of what you're going to do. But again, I think you've heard all of us speak about pivoting today. And so your career may not be linear. And so you can do something and you might move on to something else. And those experiences will all be very relevant to what you end up doing down the track. So don't be scared of making a commitment to do something, because, it will lead you down the path that you're eventually going to end up. And I think that the one thing that's really worked for me in terms of my career is, I've always, like I said, done things that I'm passionate about. So, I haven't sacrificed that to do what I thought I should be doing or what people thought I should be doing. I've always made sure I've worked for brands that I really wanted to, work for, because I enjoyed them. And it's taken me many different places and, like I said, pivoted at many different directions. But I mean, it's culminated in me being exactly where I should be and feeling very confident in my career choices so far, as different and as non-linear as they may have been.
Wonderful. So right. There's, again, like you said earlier, there's no single path, and that's a brilliant view of how you can learn from every experience that you have. And John, will close with you on this question before we go to the audience questions.
I think I'm the oldest person on this panel, and I'm not sure I can remember what my career was like 40 or 35 years ago. But one thing I will say is when I started out, and I started out in the kind of the mid to early 90s, careers were very different to the way I think they are today. Today you could have very many different jobs, very many different careers, very many different sort of things that you will do. And so my biggest advice, and this is advice I would have given to myself back then, was just be open to many different experiences. And there's two fundamental reasons for that. One is because unless you're really open to different experiences, you just don't know what you're really going to be good at and what you really like. And the other one is I think Katie said this, is that those experiences really might help you with what you're doing at the time or your next job. So just be really open to new things and new experiences. I didn't talk a lot about my own career, but I kind of did very hardcore maths and stats and pure and applied math and all of that. If I'd gone back, I love maths, I still would have done that, but I would probably have done different things as well. And that would have probably, and the people I look for in, jobs today aren't like me. I don't look for people like me. I look for people who are much more varied in their backgrounds.
John, I don't think it would have mattered if that was advice you were given 30 years or 3 minutes ago. I think it's still very relevant. Being open-minded and having a view of what the future could be. Just being open-minded rather than be closed, I think it's just sage advice. Now, of course, as we go into our audience questions, no surprise, the first one's about COVID. So let's tackle that one first, shall we? And look, rather than go to any one particular, I'll just leave it open and I'll ask for you to jump in and then we can keep it going that way. So the first question from the audience is, how has COVID-19 impacted employability within your industry and your organisation? Would anyone like to jump in there?
I'm happy to take this one first.
Sorry. No, you go, Katie. That's fine.
Okay. Well, I think I'm one of the but I'm one of the lucky people that COVID's actually probably done wonders for our business, which again is a bit of a silver lining. But I think, whilst we've had growth in terms of our platform and popularity, for me, it's been a real eye-opener in terms of how we look after our employees. So that's things like, how do we make sure we're getting the right people on board in the right way? And also, how do we look after their well-being when you're all kind of sitting behind a computer desk and a screen? So I think it comes back to a little bit of what Chan was saying before about making sure we've got people from diverse backgrounds, making sure they're representative of the community that we're hiring for, and that they can all kind of connect and reach out and, support each other during these times, because even though the business is growing, there's obviously a lot of personal stress and challenge that comes with, COVID times. So, I think it's really just about uniting people and connecting them no matter where in Australia they are and no matter where they sit.
Brilliant, Katie. John, I think you were going to jump in as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, like my own team, I got a new team. Well, we became a new team after a bit of a mini restructure at NAB midway through 2020. So midway through the kind of the pandemic and the lockdown in Melbourne. And I think I've met my team in person maybe 2-3 times. And my boss is in Sydney, and I've met her once or twice. And I think COVID's impacted us in two different ways. One is they're actually, the lockdown in some ways has been very positive. There are some positive things. I spend more time with my family. And maybe they think that I spend too much time with them, but I spend more time being able to do things rather than commute for an hour a day back. So they're positive things. But it also has affected mental health within our company, within our industry. And we run very regular what we call heartbeat results. It's a survey. And the survey really focuses on lots of things, but one of those is your mental health. And so we watch for that quite intensively. And we make sure that even though we are, in lockdown and COVID's changed how we work, we're lucky that we can still work and we still are productive. But we want to watch out for, our teammates and making sure that, they're looked after.
A couple of really great insights there. I think COVID, yes, there's a lot of negatives to it, but there are also a lot of positives that, we spoke about the future trends coming at us faster. Just this scenario, we are far more comfortable in connecting online. And as you said, Katie, that's allowed you to try and really drive a global community and so forth. And so the mental health piece, we're far more conscious of our well-being, our work-life balance. I think they're great points. Shan, let me come to you for the first one. The question is, as a mum of a young woman interested in tech, how difficult is it for girls in tech, or how difficult is it for girls in the tech-related area?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I love this question because it all kind of stems around the education right from the beginning. So, there's this idea, and I want to demystify this idea of people in tech that they're in the basement, they're wearing a hoodie and they're going hard at, hackering and whatever it is. And it's actually not that at all. There's a lot of collaboration that's, tech is actually a tool to solve problems. Sorry, did I say that? Solve problems, overall. And I think the biggest thing is if we talk about the challenges it is around education, to demystify the idea that, tech isn't what you think it is in the movies and what you see, that there's actually more to it. There's a lot of creativity there. And I think, what I love about our program is a Future Makers Academy opens up to so many different types of people. I have a woman who has 2 grandchildren and she is coding, and what a great role model that she's kind of had with her grandchildren, as well, to people who have really pivoted in their careers that are coming later in their lives, to women who are just re-entering into the in the coding field. So I think the biggest thing is that the challenge is more so around the education and the amount of roles that sit within technology that I wasn't exposed to it when I was in high school. So to be able to explore in this field a little bit further, and if you are parents listening to this, get your children to be explored in all facets of technology. The more educated, the more variety they'll be exposed to, and it's never too late either, no matter what age you're in. So just I hope that answered the question.
It does, Shannon. Great segue, by the way, because your point about it's never too late to start. There is one question here that I'm going to throw to Sam around, someone's looking to change careers, and what advice would you have for people looking to go back into study? Sam, I think you probably are in a good place to answer that.
Yeah, I think I think make sure it's part of your passion and your interest. So find something that you're actually wanting to go and follow, and then connect with the people that are going to help you study. Study comes in lots of different forms these days. It's not just a book, it's not just a course. It certainly can be those things, but it's also people, it's experience and connecting the dots as well. And I just think you have to be open in where you look for the education that you're needing to pivot. The number one thing for me is to hold a passion to it, in my opinion, because if you're really going down the path of pivoting, you want to care about what it is you're doing. It's really important to care about the things that we pursue these days. More so, I think, we've broken out of the molds. So it becomes the number one driver, in my opinion.
Brilliant, Sam. Thank you. And in some ways, a related question to the point that Sam makes about passion, and I suppose passion comes from certain experiences. So, Katie, let me ask you this. One of the questions is, what experiences stood out for you that played a significant role in you choosing your industry, or maybe just your job rather than industry? Were there any sort of certain moments that made you select where you are now or what you chose?
Yeah, great question. I think it probably comes down to 2 things for me. First of all, I've always been really, passionate about having a mentor, and it's something that I especially think, looking back at questions about women in tech, has been really strong, to find someone who you can look up to, who's maybe navigated a path before you, and go to those people for, I guess, advice and questions. And I think everybody that I've seen that's successful in the tech space has generally had a mentor that they've mapped out pretty early in their career. So that's probably the first part of it. And the second part of it comes back to what I was saying before, where it's about, I've always been selective in working, for companies that I think are I'm passionate about, and companies that I think, I can really get on board, not just with their brand, but also on their values and what they represent. So before I get involved in any companies, I, do my research in terms of the reviews. I look at things like the diversity and inclusion reviews on places like Glassdoor, so that I can make sure that, I know what I'm getting into. I look at their values and cultural, statements online, and make sure it actually resonates with me as a person. So I'm not looking at, I guess, the seniority or the next step progression wise in my career, but I'm looking more for a company that resonates with what I do in terms of soul, if that makes sense. So that's kind of what led me to where I am today, I guess, and into tech, is just because I've kind of chosen those opportunities that have kind of, landed me here, and it's the perfect place to be.
Yeah, it's a good call to make, Katie, around mentors. I think it's something that most of our students really value. So we're lucky that we have a really strong alumni community that want to help future students or future graduates and so forth. So they do want to provide mentorships. And I know a lot of our industry partners, so I know all of you and your teams provide mentoring opportunities as well. But in that context, the interesting thing for me is it's not, as we talked about, it's not just the technical skills. It's those softer skills. What are the important things that you have, in your kit bag of experiences that you need to bring to your job as you start. And one of those things I clearly know that all of us have to face into is resilience. So, John, I'll come to you. This question's an interesting one. What highlights and challenges have you experienced working in your industry? So that challenges piece, I think, is a good one for us to think through, because I know that anyone that you want to employ needs to be quite tough these days, right?
I'm not sure about that. I'll go to highlights first, because that's easier for me. I'll be honest, really honest, and I think back, the highlights to me in my 30-odd year career have been working with great people. Like when you work in a really team that's really well motivated, enabled in terms of what they are meant to do, great things happen. And there have been a couple of highlights in that in my career where you cannot, especially in maybe large organisations, but you cannot make big changes on your own. You need other people to help you, and highlights to me have just been working with other really great people. Real highlights, and we've gotten really great outcomes, really great bank-wide outcomes. For me, challenges have always been, maybe I'll call them frustrations. Frustrations for me are really around sometimes working in an environment where I don't feel enabled. I know I can do more, and sometimes that has happened in the past. My advice to that is to just keep persevering. And challenges that I've also had have been just around, dealing with, we talk about innovation, simplification, dealing to customers, but they're really complex problems. We say they're simple, right? This is what I want. But when you delve into it, they'll be really complex problems. And some of those, and getting underneath some of those are challenging, But the way you tackle those is by having great teams that are skilled, enabled, and passionate.
Brilliant, John. Look, we're really nearly out of time. I'm enjoying this conversation so much. I don't want it to end, but why don't we I'll come to each of you for your sort of pearls of wisdom. A few words. What would you say to our audience, your future employees, our future graduates, and hopefully our future students? In a few words, what would you say as pearls of wisdom in their future and what they're looking to try and do? John, let me start with you, and I'll go around the room very quickly.
I'll just be really quick and just say be open to challenges, be open to new things.
Brilliant. Katie?
I would say be genuine. So always be true to yourself and make sure you're representing yourself when you're going out for job opportunities. And then just down to that passion piece that I've mentioned a few times today, just follow your heart and make sure you do things that you're passionate about.
Thanks, Katie. Shan?
Everything to what everyone says, but I'd like to add, be coachable. You know, you're entering to the career and, you know, be open to feedback, be confident in giving feedback as well, but most importantly, be coachable.
Thanks, Shan. And Sam, for the final word to you.
I would say probably look for opportunities to disrupt and change, but always do it with an empathetic ear. I think it's really important to take on board the opinions around you.
Brilliant. Look, it's been wonderful to have this conversation with the four of you, and I just want to say a huge thank you to Shan, John, Sam, and Katie. We absolutely value the partnership that we have with you as the university, but for me personally and my team, we really, really value the time that you spent with us today. So brilliant, and hopefully this will be not just now, but I know that there'll be many of our prospect students, their families that will be looking to understand how they should prepare for the future. They'll be looking at this. So on that note, to anyone who is watching this today or in the next few days, this will be available on our Open Day panel, the Next Fest website. The platform is available till the end of September, so there'll be many more chances. We've got some really exciting events like this coming up. It will be from the industry lens, it'll be from the student lens, academics, it'll be from a number of different viewpoints. We encourage you to join in. And I'm hoping that, you find the insights and the guidance that you seek to try and choose what we all hope is an exciting career and a future. So really ask yourself what's next in your journey for your career. So on that note, once again, thank you to our panelists and thank you for everyone who's joined us. Take care.